The Dunu X Gizaudio DaVinci, or Binky, or whatever it's called. Let's talk about it. Now, I wanted to be really clear that this is a personal unit, not a sample. This is a paid IEM that I bought with my own money. That's important. I was originally invited to go on a tour, but I probably wouldn't have gotten the DaVinci for about 8 weeks, and I was really interested in it. So I decided to sell a few things and make it happen to be able to bring it to channel because it's a very hyped IEM. How do I know that it's hyped? Let me show you. Every once in a while, I'll put up a poll on YouTube. And what's interesting is this is the poll that I put up, about 12 days ago. And that's where I had the Dunu DaVinci at 51%. It's pretty impressive. So there's a lot of hype behind this IEM. There's a lot of other IEMs like the SimGot Super Mix, which I have coming in here in a few days. Pilgrim Noir I have coming in here pretty soon. Tension for You just came in, and the Alpha Explorer I recently reviewed as well. So it's a busy time, but let's get into the review. Okay, the fit and comfort of the Dunu DaVinci is actually pretty good. I think it's a nice shelled IEM. If you'll notice, it has kind of this metal kind of filter around the top. It does have a flat kind of shell where it doesn't fit as well as I would want it to. Like, I think of the three here, it's probably the least comfortable, but I used different tips on this and I found that it helped out a little bit with the fit. It has a pretty shell, a pretty design. Like, mine doesn't seem to pop as much as some other people's do. I don't think it's as comfortable as the awful shells, but I do think it is a nice shell. It's a little bit larger than the awful shell. And it doesn't really, it has kind of a lip, but it feels flat in my ear. And so it just kind of sits there. Again, not a bad shell, but its nozzle's a little bit larger. It's just a little bit wider. And again, good shell, but not my favorite. Now, the cable is, to me, really impressive. Like, it's kind of hard to get things on because it is a recessed 2-pin. So that can kind of be problematic for some people. But the overall build and quality of the cable, I think, is a really impressive, nice thing. The interlocking system to change out the connectors on this is actually really cool. Let's take a look at it. Like, you can unscrew this really easily and then put on a 4.4 if you want. I don't really use a 4.4. I don't find it necessary. But I do find it nice to have amps and decks that have a 4.4 in case I borrow one from a friend or go to a show. But generally, I just use 3.5 as because I don't really feel like the extra necessity of power. You notice it's a really supple, nice feeling cable. It's just a handsome cable. It lays flat and it works out really well. I like the case a lot. I feel it has a nice kind of dark motif. It goes with the cable and the shell of the IEM really well. It's really handsome. It feels good in hand. It also fits a dongle DAC as needed. So the sound of this IEM is interesting. I think some people might find it a little bit shouty, a little bit piercing, but I overall found it to be really good. I found I needed to tip swap a little bit with it. And I found it like it wasn't as bassy as some people claim. Although I do like a lot of bass, and everybody has different tastes, but my tastes are very sub-bass focused and mid-bass focused. And to me, this kind of hits that region, but not exact. Let's take a look at a few graphs and we'll make a summary here in a bit. Dunu DaVinci graph. I think it's a really nice graph. It fits kind of what I want out of an IEM really, really well. And I'm really impressed with this tuning. I mean, it's within my graph, within maybe 1 to 2 decibels in every single part. Save maybe the sub bass, but overall, it's a really strong set. Let's look at a few things. The first one I wanted to show you was the Dunu SA6 MK2. This was an IEM that was kind of hyped by Timmy to a certain extent. I bought it. I did not like it. It just, part of it was the fit, part of it was the sound. It had kind of a flat pinna gain, and it didn't really sound very sparkly or airy, and it wasn't really what I wanted out of an IEM. To me, the Dunu DaVinci is a much better set, and I really like it a great deal. Other graphs. Another one by Dunu, the Dunu Mirai. The Mirai came across really sharp and piercing. And there were times where I really liked the tune of it, but it didn't come across very well. If you look at the channel matching, let's see if we can look at this real quick. The channel matching of this, let's see if we can get in there. But the channel matching of the Mirai in blue was not very good. If we want to look for a moment at the channel matching of the DaVinci, it's basically perfect. Like the Dunu DaVinci is pretty much perfect to me. Their driver configurations are really, really similar. To me, the fit and comfort of the Dunu DaVinci is better. And for me, the Dunu DaVinci is just an awesome set for its price and for what it does. It has a lot more sub bass, and that was one of the big problems I had with the Dunu Mirai. It had this flat bass, which came across to me as having really good or above average sub bass, but not enough mid bass to really give it that energy. But it did sound good, but nowhere near the price point of what they originally priced it at. Okay. I wasn't really a fan of Timmy's first collab. I think it was the Galileo. But if you look at this versus the Chopin was one of my favorite sets. And you notice they have a lot of things in common. Pretty similar sub bass, pretty similar energy up here right around 3K, much dipped energy right around 5 to 6K. And I think the Chopin has a lot of good things going on for it. And it's still, to my ears, a really good set, and it sounds really nice. But I think the problem with it is that, you know, its fit and comfort can be a little bit off. Its cable is a little bit strange. You know, look at the DaVinci. The DaVinci has a lot of good things going on for it. It has even lower 5 to 6K range, which makes it less fatiguing. It just has a lot of great things going on for it. I feel it's a little bit more flat and even through the treble, but it is hard to say whether this region on a coupler is reliable past that 8K peak. Okay, one thing I wanted to show you guys is, like, when I was getting ready for this review, I started looking through Timmy's database, and Timmy has like 200 IEMs graphed. It's pretty impressive how many he has. And so I went through his entire 7-Eleven database that he has, and I tried to find the one IEM that was closest to this, and that was the Zigat Cinco-Tres. And the Zigat Cinco-Tres is an interesting IEM. It has a lot of things going on for it. Its bass region isn't nearly as good as the Dunu DaVinci, and it does come across piercing and a little bit like a little bit sharp to my ears. And it's not a bad IEM, but it was the closest thing that I could find. And it's also at a similar price point. So I think it's an interesting comparison. And then as we look at my graph of the Cinco-Tres that I got and the Dunu DaVinci, you'll notice a lot of interesting things. First, the Dunu DaVinci has increased bass, and it's just a little bit more of a smoother, nicer graph, and it fits that target right around that 6K to 8K region really, really well. And I just think it's a little bit better of an IEM. I think it's like build quality is a little bit better. It sounds better to my ears. It has a little bit less of that tucked bass right around 300. And overall, I think the Dunu DaVinci is better than the Cinco-Tres. Let's look at a few other IEMs as we go up. The next one I wanted to show you is kind of like all these put together. The DAS Cinco versus the Cinco-Tres, I think this is a real U-shape. A U-shape means that it kind of has a lot of extended energy in that 5 to 6K region. And this is, again, was kind of a popular thing last year. And what you'll notice is that Dunu DaVinci kind of takes the best out of the Cinco-Tres and the DAS Cinco. Like, it takes the bass from the DAS Cinco, and then it adds like the upper mids of the Cinco-Tres, and I think it has better air and extension. And I think that's kind of what I think is important. The Moondrop X Critical Dusk. This is an interesting comparison. But to me, and this is the non USB-C cable version, but if you look at the Dusk, to me in analog form, it didn't have really impactful sub bass, right? its upper mids were just kind of low, and then it had a lot of energy at 5 to 6K. I mean, I think there's a case to be said that the technicalities of the Dusk are better. And I think possibly for certain genres of music, it could be better. But for me, I just thought the Dusk was a really kind of a boring set, and it just had way too much energy there. It was really fatiguing. Like after having it in ear for about an hour, I was just like, oh, I'm done. It just kind of drove me crazy. The Dunu DaVinci is different. Like to me, it sounds like perfectly neutral in ear, and I really like how it feels as well. The next thing I wanted to show you, just kind of talking about bass, and I wanted to look at the Elysian Diva. And you notice the Diva has a lot of different switches. It has the red switch, which is the flat switch. I'm going to go and remove that because that's not something I'm interested in. But if you notice that the Dunu DaVinci kind of hits that line just about perfect. I kind of wish I had maybe a smidget more sub bass, but overall it just has really good bass. Like the Diva's funny because like it doesn't really have that middle ground. Like it either has super Giga Chad level bass or kind of lean, lame bass, and so it doesn't really have anything that's like kind of perfectly balanced in between the two, and that makes it a little bit of a challenge. Now, as we go up the chain, the next thing we have is the Elysian Pilgrim. Now, the Elysian Pilgrim is a little bit of a slight U shape. I think the bass levels, they come across very similar. I think the dynamics and slam of the Pilgrim, even though it doesn't match here, it is really good. And I think in some ways it would get my vote as to what's the better set. For me, the Dunu DaVinci comes across a little bit more neutral, a little bit more fun in the upper mids, but it doesn't come across as fatiguing and as U-shaped as the Pilgrim does. It's like the Pilgrim's almost trying to split the middle in between a U-shaped IEM and kind of a flat, even IEM, and it kind of doesn't really know what it's doing, but it does achieve what it wants to do very well, and I'm actually pretty interested in the Noir, which I have coming in here in about a week or two. The next thing I want to look at is the Hype. Now, to me, these two trade blows, and to me, so with the Dunu DaVinci, I think it is a good set versus the Hype 4, and I think you could kind of say that it trades blows. I think there's a sense of space and technicalities in the Hype 4 that doesn't really exist in the DaVinci. The DaVinci kind of comes across a little bit less flat, a little bit less airy. I think the technicalities of the Dunu DaVinci aren't on the same level as the Hype, but it is a really good and fun sounding set, and it is really impressive. The last set that I wanted to show you guys was the Explorer. Now, to me, the Explorer, even though it is a more budget set, it still has a lot going on for it. The Explorer has kind of increased sub bass. It has kind of a less of a peanut gain, and I think its air and extension is also really, really good. To me, the air of Awful Explorer is really strong. It has good technicalities, and I think they're about on the same level as the Explorer and the DaVinci. And I think the thing about the DaVinci is that it has kind of like sparklier, more of this upper air region. And to me, that affects vocals a lot. But if that's what you're kind of going for, like if you're looking for more of a bass style IEM, actually the Explorer has really nice bass and I like it a lot. Whereas the DaVinci to me has a little bit more forward vocals. It has a lot more of a balanced, almost of a neutral signature. And to my ear, it's just a nice set overall, but they do different things. But it's hard to say that like the Awful Explorer is a bad set. To me, it's one of the better sets under 120. But again, a lot of things fall into personal preference into what you like because it's a crazy hobby. All right, let's talk ranking lists. I've kind of redone my ranking list to be a little bit more similar to with what some other reviewers have done, and try to rank it based on audio score rather than some kind of a star system. What you can do is if you want, you can click here on the copy the spreadsheet and you can make your own spreadsheet of this and then be able to do whatever you want with it to sort things. And you can look and see what kind of 3 stars, which I find to be really good IEMs. I really like the Dunu DaVinci, and it kind of hits that sweet point of how much its cost is. I really think it's an impressive set, and I really think there's a lot of good things going on with it. I think it's like the tuning of this IM, I think, is basically perfect. I think there are some problems with it. Like, to me, the bass level just wasn't enough, and it didn't really feel that impactful. I felt like the technical ability of it was really nice, but not as good as some other sets. I feel like, like the soundstage, if you look at, some other IMs, I think there's this space and lushness that comes across in like the hype. And there's certain things that come across in the Hype 4 that don't come across in the DaVinci. Like, they're really, really similar. And like the line in between, they're both, all these 8.7 IEMs that they have a lot of things going on for them where it could kind of go to the S- versus A. To me, there's a lot of good things going on with the Dunu DaVinci. Like, I think it is a recommend for me, but there's a lot of caveats to it. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Up on a few weeks ago, Critical on his database had this project Night that he called. And this is based off a picture that I took on my phone a while ago based on that graph. There are other people that are pushing towards this JM1 target, for those that are familiar with it. So while I think this is a really good sounding IM and it's very similar to the Dusk DSP, I wanted to kind of warn you guys that I think there are a lot of IEMs coming out, like possibly this Project Night, possibly the SimGot Supermix, and a lot of other things coming out that might have a very similar tuning and might be able to even accomplish what this IEM is trying to do as well. So, as a conclusion, what do I want to say about this IEM? I think it's an exceptional IEM. It sounds really good. It looks good. It feels good. It has a nice cable, a nice case. I think it's a reasonable price, but there are things that are coming out soon that, there's a ton of different IEMs that might work for you. And if you EQ, this may not be the best IEM that you're looking for. I personally really like it. I really think it is a benchmark, but I do always want to be cautious with you guys, almost like I would with my kids or with my friends or with people that may not have, be as privileged as we want. That I think this is a good IEM, but I think with EQ and with other IEMs, you might be able to get this sound profile and figure out what you want for maybe a cheaper price. It's a crazy hobby. Is this worth $2,000 or is this worth $20,000? It's hard to say. To me, I feel like it's about right. I feel it's tuned well, but maybe could use a little bit of special sauce in the technicalities. And I feel like the technicalities make it feel like it's just about right where it's at. Again, I like it. I think it's good. I enjoy the tuning of it, but I do find that possibly the bass could be better. Possibly the upper mid sometimes can be a little bit piercing, but that's a little bit, that's me being a little bit overly critical. I think it's a fantastic IM and it gets my recommendation, but you might be better off waiting a little bit or trying it at a show or demoing it first before you buy it. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. You're still here. It's over. Go home. Go watch another IEM video. It's done. That's the entire video. What more do you want?